it. I've already said it twice, but this is the third time I'm going to say it. Thank you for having me for the game and letting me sit in the press box. It was a really good experience, and everybody was upfront and nice and showed me around. I highly recommend it to anybody, including my co-host, if you ever have to go to Virginia Tech, don't be afraid to reach out to Travis and Carter and put your name in to be in the press box. But let's get the show on the road. We are going to first recap week 2 of the college football season. And I will let my co-host tell us how we did in every conference.
Okay, so starting with the ACC, I went 1-2. Alec went 0-3 in that the games we had. We both had SMU. They lost to BYU.
Yeah, I was gonna text you when that happened. I'm like, probably shouldn't have.
Duke beat Northwestern. I had Duke. Alec had Northwestern. We both took Georgia Tech, and Syracuse beat them. So there were the losses there. In the Big Ten, and that is Alec's conference, he went 2-1. I went 1-2.
Okay, over 500.
We both picked Penn State. They beat Bowling Green. Alec picked
Iowa. See, I want to say something about that Penn State Bowling Green. Penn State struggled.
They did.
They struggled big time with Bowling Green, and that scares me. That scares me a lot.
The next one was the Iowa State-Iowa game. Alec took Iowa State. I took Iowa. Iowa State won on a game-winning field goal. So the Cyclones won that one. And
that was also one of my upsets.
Yes. And we both took Kansas, and Illinois won that football game. So we lost.
The amount of trash we talked about Illinois. I guess it came back to bite us in the in the tush.
Yes.
I guess maybe these teams do listen to the podcast.
Maybe. That's a possibility. The next conference, the Big 12, we both went undefeated. Both 3-0.
Okay.
We both took Oklahoma State over Arkansas. They won. K-State.
Well, but that took double overtime.
Yeah, but hey, it's a win is a win. Kansas State had a tough game against Tulane. We both took K-State. And Utah beat Baylor. So there was the Big 12 games. We both.
Which I'm going to say something. I think that makes Dave Aranda's seat even hotter than it already was.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's as good as gone at the end of the season, if not earlier.
Yeah. The next is the American. We also both went 3-0 in that conference. The Memphis game, we both took the Tigers. They beat Troy. Army beat FAU, and yes, Alabama beat USF, as we both predicted that to happen. So yes, that was a tough pill to swallow for yours truly. The SEC, which is my conference, Alec beat me. He was 2-1. I was 1-2. The game that was the difference was that he took Texas over Michigan. They won.
Texas
demolished Michigan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm still – I've checked in on my friends that are Michigan fans, and they're not doing too – they're not doing too well. They're still complaining and saying, oh, Texas has a better quarterback than us, which yours is a good quarterback.
Yes. We both took Auburn over Cal. Cal beat them. So we both lost that game. And then the game that we won, South Carolina over Kentucky. South Carolina rolled Kentucky. So that was my only win in the conference with the South Carolina game. But, yeah, so that's how we did last week. So, in week 2.
So this week when we do game picks, it's going to be the same thing. But we're going to start with our upset picks, and I will let you go first.
I have 4, bud. The first one we just got done talking about them. I'm going to take South Carolina over LSU. LSU is a 7-point favorite, so I'm going to take the Gamecocks there. And all my FSU friends are going to be mad about this, but I'm taking Memphis. The Noles are going 0-3 to start the season. They're an 8-point favorite. I'm taking the Tigers. Alec was talking earlier about Notre Dame. I'm taking the Boilermakers. They're a 10.5-point underdog. I'm taking them there. And the game that me and this fine gentleman that's my host here will be calling on Saturday night, I'm taking Colorado State over Colorado, the 7.5 points. So I'm taking Colorado State to win that game.
Okay, so let me give you mine. My first one, and this is a rivalry game. It is Pitt, West Virginia. Backyard brawl. I'm taking Pitt plus the 2.5 to upset West Virginia. My second one is, I know I pick on Rice a lot because they're a food, but I like them plus 5 to upset Houston. Houston is probably the worst team in the Big 12, if not worse than Baylor. So I like Rice to upset them. And then my last upset is, I'm sorry, I know we picked K-State last week, but K-State, I'm putting you on upset alert against Arizona plus 7. Now we're going to do our picks against the spread, and I will take first dibs. I've got, as you had Colorado State, I have Colorado State plus 7.5 to cover the spread against Colorado in the game we will be calling Saturday night. And then my next is UCF plus, and I don't understand why this line is so low. UCF plus 1.5 to cover against TCU. The people that put out the lines have a lot of explaining to do. I have not been impressed with TCU at all. And then my last one is, it's the battle of the Florida International and Florida Atlantic. I'm taking FIU plus the 5.5 to cover against FAU.
Okay.
Let
I'm going to start with USF. I'm going to take the 12 points over Southern Miss. I think they have a bounce back game after losing to Alabama. I'm going to take Texas A&M over Florida. They're a 4-point favorite. They're in College Station. Florida's not a good football team. A&M should cover that by a lot. And I'm going to take Oklahoma over Tulane. They're a 14-point favorite. I'm going to take the Sooners all the way across the board in that one.
And for those of you looking for our Florida talk, we will be talking about the Gators later in the show. And let's get to our over-unders. My first over-under is going to be South Carolina and LSU. The total is 50.5. Mm-hmm. And I got burned taking the over on a game last week, and I believe it was South Carolina. But I'm willing to do – no, I took the under Kentucky, South Carolina. It was another game I took the over and ended up pushing. But I like over 50.5 in South Carolina, Kentucky. No, LSU, South Carolina. Correction. I think I was not impressed with South Carolina's defense. I like the over. And then the second one is Arkansas UAB. Arkansas's defense looked horrific last week. And the total for the UAB Arkansas game is 60.5. And if recency bias tells me something, I like the over. I think both teams are going to score at will. And then the last one, I'm sorry, BYU fans. You're going to Laramie. And Laramie, to me, is a house of horrors. And the the total for this game is a measly 39.5. So that tells me they don't think there's going to be a whole lot of points scored.
Correct.
So give me the under, and if I get burned again for the second week in a row, taking a game to go under, when it's under 40 points as the total, I'll deal with it. It's fine. What's your over-unders?
I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna take some of the games I already mentioned with the spread and the upsets. I'm gonna take over 47.5 with A&M Florida. I think A&M will score. So if you think about that, that's 48 points. That's 24 points apiece. A&M should be able to score 24 against the Gators defense. I don't know if Florida can put up that many points. So I'm going to take the over there, but barely. You know what? I'm going to take the over in the South Florida game too. I think USF again couldn't throw the ball against Alabama last week. It's 58.5, but South Florida can put up points as we saw against Syracuse and against Bethune-Cookman. And yes, I know they only scored 16 points against Alabama, but they can put points up in bunches. I think South Florida they've run the most offensive plays of any college football team so far this season, so I'll take them. And you know what? I'm going to take the over-under in the Michigan-Arkansas State game. I'm going to take the 45.5. I'm going to go over. I think Michigan has a bounce back this week too. So those are my over-unders there.
Okay, so next we get to our player of the week. This is a new segment that we are introducing this week, and it'll be on every Tuesday show going forward. I will let you go first with yours.
Okay.
Because mine's kind of obvious who it's going to be. It's going to be from the game I was at.
Okay. I have two. Now, Bud, real quick, are these players for this week or are you players for last week? What is
Players of the week from week 2.
Oh, week 2. Okay. You know what? I hate to say this, but being that I watched the game, I'm going to go with Jalen Moreau, the quarterback from Alabama. The kid scored 2 or 3 of the Alabama's touchdowns. He's an athlete. The kid can throw the ball. He can run. And up till 3.5 quarters, they were able to keep him in check. Unfortunately, you run out of gas and you don't score points. So I'm going to go with Jalen Monroe from Alabama from last week.
Milroe?
Yeah, Milroe. Yep.
Okay, you said you had 2, so who's your other player of the week?
The other player I would have to say, you know what? I'm going to go with DJ Lagway, the quarterback from Florida, because Mertz got hurt. He had a good game, and now I think Billy Napier's got some questions this week to who he's going to start at home against A&M. So, yeah, I'm waiting to see what Billy Napier does.
Well, and we're also going to talk about that in a little bit, too.
Okay.
My player of the week, and I just said it's kind of obvious because it's the game I was at. It is Virginia Tech running back Bashal, 31 carries, 154 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I got the chance to ask him a question at his post-game press conference. Really, really genuinely nice, really nice kid. And he looked like he was having a lot of fun out there, especially with the 2 touchdowns and 154 yards rushing. It didn't matter who Virginia Tech had in at running back. They were getting 5 to 10 yards a carry. That offensive line, Va-Tech's got a good offensive line. Bashal is going to be I'm not going to say first-round pick when he comes out. He'll probably be second or third-round pick in the draft. And then honorable mention goes to Kyron Jones because this was his first game of the season because he did not play. I'm 95% sure he did not play in week 1 because I think Colin Schlee was the quarterback. which they would be 2-0 right now if Drones did play week 1. But that's neither here nor there. But now let's go into a little discussion about the Gators. And I'll let you start. I'll let you give your 2 cents since you're the SEC guy on the podcast here and you're a Gator fan.
Well, as I mentioned last week, that if they didn't show up against Samford, Billy Napier's already on the hot seat as it is anyway. Now they did win 45-0, but they now have a quarterback conundrum now that they have to deal with. Now I messed up. I said Texas A&M was at home. My apologies. They're in Gainesville, so that was my apology earlier. But Texas A&M is no joke. They're not. They've been next to Missouri since Missouri came into the SEC. A&M and Missouri have both been kind of like a nail on the side for the Florida Gators. Do the Gators need to win this game? Not really. It would help because, again, they do have a nightmarish schedule in November. So it would help for them to possibly get to a bowl game and get to 6 wins. If they get to 5, will Napier keep his job? Possibly. I don't know, though. But the Gators, they've always had a good defense. They have a good defense. Their offense hasn't been good for a while since, I can even go back as far as saying since Tebow left. So it's been that long since their offense has been rolling on all cylinders, and what Florida Gator fans are used to seeing with, when Spurrier was here, we would score 80 points a game, but we haven't had that kind of offense since Tebow went to the NFL. So
I'm right there with you. I agree. I follow the Gators, but I'm not as big of a Gator fan as you are. But you kind of hit it spot on. They have to win at least 6 games for Napier to keep his job. If they win 5, he's out of there. They won't hesitate to let him go and find somebody else. And I wouldn't be surprised, and I know you might disagree with me, if they fire Napier, they might go after Dion.
I think Dion goes to FSU because I think Norvell gets the boot. If they go 0-3, he might be finding himself because Dion went to FSU. I don't see Dion being a Gators coach because a lot of people that played for the rival don't like to be a coach of the rival. But again, I guess if the money's right, who knows? That's what it's all about anyway.
That's like me with people saying, Urban would come out of retirement to go to Michigan. No, he wouldn't. He's already came out and said, no matter how much money Michigan would give him, he will refuse and keep refusing to go there because they're the biggest rival of Ohio State. But I'm going to say this. I think Lagway needs to start the rest of the season. I'm sorry, Graham Mertz. I know you got injured, but Mertz, you need to be the backup and you need to be a mentor to the true freshman.
In the future anyway. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, because you never know. If Napier does get fired and they look to go in a different direction at head coach, that coach could say, Mertz is gone after this year, but they might go back into portal and find somebody, maybe to start the first couple of games of next year so DJ could get some reps and practice. But then again, they might start him. Now, let's get into talking about if Napier gets fired, who are 3 realistic options for the next coach for the Gators?
Oh, wow.
Realistic. I mean, you could get crazy, but Let's try to be realistic.
Wow, that's I wasn't prepared. 3 realistic ones. Well, I mean, I don't know if you want to go and, if say some of them get fired, do you want to say one of them? Um, because you need someone. Napier's been he's had
And
some good
okay,
recruiting classes,
he's been
good
a
recruiting.
decent recruiter.
Yeah, so you got to get someone who can recruit and geez, I forget who the coach was prior to Billy Napier. I forget his name now. I know he coached at Mississippi State. Then he came to Florida. He
Mullen,
was an assistant
was it Dan Mullen?
under Dan Mullen, yes, under Urban Meyer. Um yeah, so no, I don't think you go back to Dan Mullen because he couldn't recruit, so that's not going to happen. Um you know what? This is crazy. How about John Gruden? I mean, that might be crazy to say that. The only
I mean,
reason why
that's not. I mean, I wouldn't
well,
say that's crazy, but that's a little out in left field.
well, the reason that is too is remember John Gruden is a dictator, as what you would call a coach in the NFL. He's a dictator. You can do that in college to a certain extent before kids start saying, "Okay, I'm out of here. I can transfer. I can go someplace else." So maybe John Gruden. That's out there. Trying to think of any of the coaches that are. How about who was the
How
coach?
about I saw someone Lane Kiffin.
Why would Lane Kiffin leave Ole Miss though? I just
They said if he got offered by Florida, he'd leave in a heartbeat.
That's shocking to me because he's built such a good program at Ole Miss the last few years. I can't imagine. And he coached at Tennessee. So you're going to have a Tennessee volunteer coach come in and coach Florida? Interesting. Okay. Who was the coach at A&M that got fired that was at FSU?
Taggart?
No, that's not going to happen. I've gone through Willie Taggart with you. That's not happening. Jimbo Fisher. I'm going to say Jimbo Fisher.
I know, and I'll tell you why. Florida State.
Really know either, right? I know, yeah, he was at FSU. I know, yep, I know. Again, it's far-fetched out there, but yeah.
So are those your 3?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll give you mine. Here's my first one. Former Texas A&M coach. Then he went to, I think, Arizona. Got fired there because they brought in Fish. Kevin Sumlin.
Okay.
That's 1. 2, he is currently on the staff at Ohio State. I believe he's the offensive line coach. Justin Fry. Or no, actually, scratch that. Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator at Ohio State. As much as I don't want to see an Ohio State coach leave to take a head coaching job, it's going to happen. It's inevitable. That's why you go to Ohio State, is to be there for a couple of years, to learn under Ryan Day. Then you take a head coaching job. So Sumlin and Knowles. And then the third one, this is shot and dark. I doubt he wants to go back and coach at Florida. Jim McElwain.
Isn't he at Western Michigan?
Central.
No, Central Michigan. That's right. Okay. Yeah, Jim didn't do very well here. His tenure wasn't very good.
And then I'll give you this is extremely way out in left field. This guy he's a college coach, but he's kind of off the board. Nobody really talks about him. He went to high school in Florida at Plant, and then he played quarterback at Toledo. Philip Ely. He's a head football. He's on the coaching staff at Tifton College. Now, am I saying that he's going to get a head coaching job in D1? No. But if he got called and got the money, then maybe a possibility, but I think he likes where he is right now. But that's not saying if the money comes that he won't leave where he is and take a coaching job somewhere else.
True.
But and the other thing, now we're going to switch over to, and I'm sorry, Michigan fans, we are going to talk about Michigan for a little bit. Let's talk about their QB conundrum they're having. Because I just heard that they've got a freshman that most of the fans think should be starting. I think his name is Jaden Davis. It's something Davis. And they think he should be starting over Davis Warren and Alex Orji. But I've watched a little bit of film on him from the spring. He's got potential, but the problem is he's very raw. Like he still needs development. And are you really telling me you're going to throw a true freshman that has barely played out to the Wolves when Michigan's about to get into Big Ten play? And you got to play Michigan State, Penn State. No, they don't play Penn State this year, but they play Maryland, Michigan State, Iowa, Purdue, Indiana, who looked, albeit against the FCS team, really good on Saturday. But that was an FCS team.
Well, the FCS teams are getting closer than we talked about that, a couple of shows ago about how closer they're getting to being there. So, yeah.
It was Western Illinois, which, sorry, Western Illinois fans. Your team got, how do I say it nicely? Pummeled. You only put up 3 points, and you gave up 77.
Yeah, there you go.
But where do you? I know you don't watch that much Big Ten, but where do you stand on Michigan's quarterback issues?
Well, they got to figure something out because obviously what happened on Saturday is Texas came in there and beat them at every facet of the ball. Early on, Michigan was able to stop them, but Texas, once they adjusted, you saw how good Quinn Ewers is. Obviously, Texas could have played Michigan last year in the playoff had it not been for Washington beating them in the playoff game. They're going to have to figure something out, but either make it more simple if you're going to start a true freshman, make it more simple for him. Obviously, as we all know, the Wolverines depend a lot on their run game. They do. That's they've done that for the last few years. If they can get a running game established early on in the game, and if you're going to start your true freshman, get him confident, add some screen plays, some quick passes across the middle of the field, because they play what many would consider a cupcake this week, but conference play begins in a couple weeks, or maybe next week, maybe. So you got to get your quarterback straightened out, because it means something now as we get into the end of September, middle of September, all the way to November and December, when we have the championship games and stuff like that going on. So they're going to have to figure it out in a hurry, because if not, a lot of the games that they were probably favored in at the beginning of the season, they're either still favored or they're not favored anymore. So they're going to have to figure it out. Coach Moore's going to have to figure that out.
for a fact they're not favored against Ohio State. That's the only game I know for a fact they're not favored.
Okay.
I don't know about the rest. I would assume they're favored against Michigan State, but that does not look like an easy game for them anymore. Michigan State, even though they got a new head coach, they still look like I'm not going to say legit threat, but they look like they can maybe make some noise in their first year under Jonathan Smith. And I did put them in my rankings that I put out the other day. And unfortunately, Notre Dame fans, sorry, you're not in my rankings. You've not impressed me at all, and same with Florida State. And I'm going to briefly say this about my rankings. Florida State, I had you unranked to begin with because I was not falling for that you all were going to be good this year. I know what – I'm not a Clemson fan, but I know some Clemson fans. And they dodged a big-time minnow by getting rid of DJU.
Mm-hmm.
And I know some Oregon State fans, and they said the same thing. They're glad that DJU's gone, even though he led them to a bowl game. And almost winning the Pac-12 last year, need I add. If it wasn't for them losing, if they didn't lose to Oregon. But let's get to game picks now.
Okay.
And we're going to start, this week we're going to start in the SEC.
Okay.
And the first of the three games we're going to pick is Alabama and Wisconsin. And I'm going to go first. And make sure you have paper so you can write it down this time.
Will do.
So I'm looking at the line here, and Alabama's favored by 16.
Mm-hmm.
And you know I'm a Big Ten guy, so you know who I'm probably going to go with.
You're going to go with the Badgers.
Unfortunately, I am, and it's probably going to blow up in my face again.
Okay.
So I'm taking Wisconsin. I've been impressed with Van Dyke, though. Tyler Van Dyke's looked good in Wisconsin so far.
Okay. I'm going to take Bama. I saw them last week, so I'm going to take Bama.
LSU, South Carolina. And this is where game day is, and everybody is incensed and thinking that game day should be at Wisconsin, Alabama. I am going to go South Carolina.
I'm going to agree with you, but I think I'm going to take the Gamecocks as well.
And do you think people have the right to be mad that game day's not at Wisconsin, Alabama?
No, because you know what? Honestly, I think it's been in Wisconsin and Madison for games in the past. I don't know how often it's been. I don't know what city University of South Carolina is in. Bear with me.
Columbia.
Sorry about that. Columbia. Thank you. I think it needs to be there. I mean, that's an SEC matchup, so I don't see why it would be a big deal if it's in Columbia instead of being in Madison. So yeah.
And then our last one is, and I can't believe they're actually ranked, Boston College and Missouri.
Okay.
Now, normally I'd take the Eagles, but Boston College fans, I think your Cinderella story runs out here. I think you get absolutely throttled by Missouri. Now, again, I could be wrong, and y'all could somehow beat Missouri, but I don't think it happens. There's just too many. Missouri's got too many weapons. Luther Burden, Brady Cook. The list goes on and on. We'd be here for a whole hour if I kept going. And how many people Brady Cook's?
I'm taking Mizzou too. They're like I said. I think the first show that I did with you, I had said one of my bold predictions was that they were going to be in the playoff for the SEC. So I'm taking Missouri.
Okay. Now we get to we're gonna switch it up. We're gonna go the Mid-American Conference. And
Okay,
then we're gonna do Central. Oh boy. Central Michigan, Illinois. Do we bite the bullet again and go against Illinois, or do we take Illinois?
I'm taking the Illini. They got me last week, so I'm going to take the Illini.
I'm going to take Illinois too. I'm not doing that 2 weeks in a row. Now, this second game, give me Miami of Ohio.
Oh, you got Cincinnati, Miami of Ohio. You know what, bud? I'm going to go with you on that one. I think since Cincinnati's made the jump to the Big 12, that was a mistake, and they haven't played very well. And yeah, they're doomed.
My reasoning for taking Miami is I think they pull the upset for the second time in 2 years. They did it last year and nobody expected it. I think they do it again this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then our last game in the MAC is between two teams that are just they stink up the joint. UMass and Buffalo. And little backstory, UMass is actually going to be in the Mid-America Conference in 2025. Which to me doesn't make sense why they left in the first place. But if I had to choose somebody, I'm going to take Buffalo.
I'm also going to take Buffalo because I got to see UMass as a basketball school. It's not a football school. And they were in the American for a couple years, and USF and the rest of the conference used to beat up on them. So I'll take Buffalo as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. UMass used to be an American Athletic Conference school?
They were in the American up till I think the year, I think up till 2022 is when they left the conference. I think they were independent last year. Yeah, they were independent last year. They went into independent last year because they couldn't keep up with the teams in the American. So yeah.
Okay, now we're going Conference USA. Louisiana Tech, North Carolina State. Louisiana Tech fans, unfortunately, I would not want to show up to this game. I think you're going to get the brakes beat off of you by North Carolina State. They are not a happy. They're not a happy bunch of humans right now. They just got 60 put up on them by Tennessee last week. Give me North Carolina State and a laugher.
Yeah, I'm taking the Wolfpack. They're pissed off. They're mad. It's going to be a beatdown.
FAU, FIU, and Boca. And I think I had.
You picked FIU, bud, didn't you, earlier in your upset pick?
It's the spread.
Spread, okay.
I think I don't want to go against the American here, but I did pick FIU to cover. But I think Florida Atlantic's going to win.
I'm going to go with the Owls as well. I think they bounced back from last week after they got the triple option offense ran on them by Army. But yeah.
Liberty and UTEP. Interesting little note here. Look at the line. 23. I'm taking. It's not going to scare me away from taking Liberty. Give me Liberty.
I'm going to go with you on that one, bud. I'm going to take Liberty as well.
And then now we get to the big dogs. Get the Big Ten. We just did Alabama, Wisconsin, Arkansas State, and Michigan. Give me the Wolverines.
Yep.
As much as it pains me to pick them.
I took them earlier. Yes, I'll take them there too.
Oregon State, Oregon. Civil War.
Civil War.
Oregon is they're a little questionable right now. They almost lost to Idaho, and they almost got beat by Boise State. So something tells me that there might be an upset brewing here. This is in Corvallis, and I've heard Corvallis is not the place you want to go. So give me Oregon State.
Yeah, you know what? But I was leaning towards the Beavers. I'll take Oregon State too in the upset.
I've heard that Corvallis is a house of nightmares for ranked teams. Notre Dame, Purdue.
I'm taking Boilermakers. I already picked them from one of my upset picks, so I'm going to take Purdue, even though Notre Dame
Notre Dame is ticked off, and I know a Notre Dame fan, and I was texting back and forth with him after the game. He said, Purdue, you best be ready to get the brakes beat off of you. And this, my friend used to play wide receiver at Notre Dame.
Okay.
So give me the Irish.
Okay. All right.
Now we go to the Big 12. Arizona State, Texas State. And let me see something. I think I might have this on another show for an upset. No, I don't. Cool. Give me Arizona State.
Yep, I'm going to go with the Sun Devils as well.
UNLV, Kansas. UNLV, I know you're 2-0, but I would not show up to Lawrence. You are going to get destroyed. To put it nicely. Kansas is not in a good mood. Give me the Jayhawks.
Same here.
K-State, Arizona, and obviously Arizona is one of my upset picks, so give me Arizona.
You know what? I'm going to take K-State. I like their quarterback. I'm going to take K-State in that one.
So there's 3 from the Big 12. Now we get to the American. Oklahoma State, Tulsa. I don't think I've learned my lesson yet on picking against Mike Gundy. So I think it starts today. Give me Oklahoma State.
Yep, I'm taking the Cowboys as well. Tulsa's not a good football team.
And it's unfortunate because their head coach used to be the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. Memphis and FSU.
Give me the Tigers.
Give me Memphis. North Texas, Texas Tech.
Texas Tech. Oh, wow, the mean green. I'm going to take Texas Tech. I'm going to go against the green.
Put the guns up. Give me Tech.
Okay. All right.
And then last but certainly not least, the ACC.
ACC.
And we're going to start with another team that's horrible in Ball State and Miami. I think we both know who we're going with. Miami.
Yeah, I'll be seeing the Hurricanes up close and personal in a week from this Saturday. So, yes, I'll take the Hurricanes.
VMI, Georgia Tech. There's no way Georgia Tech loses to VMI.
Nope, I agree with that. I'm going to go with the Yellow Jackets.
And before we move on, before we go to the next game, I didn't know this until I walked into the Corps and Cadets thing at Va-Tech. Va-Tech, one of their rivals, used to be VMI. just a little interesting side note for anybody that didn't know. Back in the day, VMI and Virginia Tech were rivals. Now we get to the backyard brawl. West Virginia is a 3-point favorite. Give me, like I said, my upset pick is Pitt. Give me Pitt.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Panthers as well. West Virginia burned me in week 1, so I picked
They
them to
burned
beat.
us both.
Yeah.
And you know what? Just for
State.
the heck of it, we're going to go with an extra pick in the ACC. Duke and UConn. 2 basketball schools. Give me Duke.
Yeah, give me the Blue Devils. I took them last week and they won, so I'm going to stick with it.
Oh, you need this. Okay. So now we get to our top 8 games for week 3, and I will let you give yours first.
Okay. We picked a lot of these games with our picks. Alabama, Wisconsin, that got to be up there as one of the top ones. LSU, South Carolina, Memphis, Florida State, BC, Missouri. I have Tulane and Oklahoma. Tulane's an interesting bunch. Almost beating K-State last week. They have a monstrous task going to Norman to play the Sooners. Notre Dame, Purdue, FIU, FAU. You had that one, bud. And I have UTSA against Texas. Texas obviously will win that game, but I have that game as one of my top 8 this week.
Okay, my turn. My number 8 game is Old Dominion in Virginia Tech. Now, do I think Old Dominion keeps it close against Virginia Tech? I sure hope not after what I saw from Virginia Tech last week, only giving up 14 points to Marshall. But that's a Marshall team that absolutely didn't. It seemed like they gave up halfway through the third quarter. My number 7 game is Arizona State and Texas State. I think defense is going to be highly optional between Arizona State and Texas State. After seeing what Arizona State did last week. Number 6, App State ECU. And this was one of the other games people were saying that game day should be at, is East Carolina and Appalachian State. And I'm like, why? East Carolina, I don't think is going to be that good of a team this year. Number 5, and I have one that's the same as yours, FAU. It's an in-state rivalry, as we both know. And I think it's going to be highly competitive. Number 4, Bama and Wisconsin. 3, A&M, Florida. I think there's a way Florida wins this game. Number 2, Memphis, Florida State. And number 1, Miami of Ohio, Cincinnati. Now we can talk a little bit about Florida and Texas A&M and how we think Florida could pull the upset, if there's any possibility.
Well, there's definitely a possibility. Obviously, we all know that any team can win any given Saturday. I think if the Gators are going to win, they got to start their quarterback. They got to start DJ. Like you said earlier, sorry about all the Graham Mertz fans out there, but he needs to be like Alec mentioned earlier. He needs to be a mentor to him. He's the future at Florida anyway. Because he has the running ability, maybe he can keep A&M's defense on the ropes for a little while. But yeah, I mean, is there a possibility? Yes. Is it slim? Yes, it is very slim, but yes.
I'm right there with you. I think DJ needs to start. And the way they pull the upset is limiting turnovers and not having dumb penalties.
Mhm.
No false start, no delay game, no unnecessary roughness, no. I mean, is excessive celebration still a penalty? Because I very rarely seen it called.
Probably depends on the referees. It would depend on the officials, but yeah.
And then the whole sideline warning thing. Don't if somebody on A&M is trying to pick a fight, walk away.
Mhm.
They always get the second guy in. That's always how it is. They get the second person that comes into the fray, and that's the one that gets flagged. Look at a couple years ago when Florida had Marco Wilson, and everybody was in. They had a little scrimmage. I think they were playing LSU, and they had a little. He took off his shoe and chucked it 10 yards down the field, and he's the one
penalty. We lost in overtime.
Yep. I was sitting on the couch watching. I'm like, that was dumb. That was not smart at all. To take somebody's shoe and chuck it 10 yards down the field and get a penalty. Or when these guys are along the sideline and they're flapping their gums to a guy on the other team, walk away. You're taught that in high school. Walk away. De-escalate the situation. Now it's different. If it's your quarterback getting hit and an offensive lineman comes in late, yeah, okay. Do something about it, but don't get flagged.
Mm-hmm.
Still walk away. And then I've seen there's 2 or 3 guys that were either committed to Florida State or I think there was one that committed to Tennessee that flipped to UF. And then there was a couple guys that committed to Florida State that have flipped their commitment, and one of them's going to Texas, and then the other one's going to, I want to say either Michigan State, or Ohio State, maybe. That's the one thing with recruiting people got to realize is these guys, they commit to a school, but they've got till December or February to flip their commitment to go somewhere else.
Well, yeah, and then also too, but they have the right to transfer. The portal's there, so they have the right to transfer. And if they get a bad situation, like say FSU loses this week, they go 0-3. Why would you want to stay there knowing that you're going to go through probably what they would call a rebuild? Obviously,
well, see with that, I wouldn't really call it rebuild. It might be more of a as we say in the NFL and MLB, retool. Because Florida State's not really a school you would consider rebuild.
Right.
That would be, and I'm sorry, I know you're a Gator fan, but that would be UF. That would be Mississippi State, Auburn,
Arkansas.
Even though I think Peyton Thorne had another good week. I'm not looking good for what I said about him in the preseason. He's proven me wrong. Again, like we said earlier, some of these guys might actually watch the show and we just don't know.
Well, if you guys do watch the show, come on. Talk to
us. Yeah, come on and talk to us and tell us that we were wrong when we made predictions.
Correct.
But I know this is a shot in the dark, but where do you think game day is going to be in week 4?
Oh, I haven't even here. Hang on a minute, but let me pull up the let's pull up the schedule for and see. Let's see here.
And we can predict where we think it's going to go the next 3 weeks. So
Okay.
week 4, 5, and 6.
Let me see real quick. Pull it up on here and we'll see. Let's see. That was pretty harsh of what happened to Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know if you saw the video.
I did.
That cop.
We can
Yeah.
briefly talk about that while you're pulling up the schedule. The
Okay.
cops were wrong for what they did.
I agree.
Completely wrong. There was no probable cause to yank him out of the car. And it almost looked like they broke the door to his car.
That's what that's what my thought process was. Let's see, but so week 4, top 25. I'm gonna give you a shot in the dark and one that
Okay,
I
we can
think.
do that. So we can do shot in the dark and where we actually think it's going to go.
Okay, my shot in the dark. Tampa, Miami, USF in Tampa. Shot in the
Okay.
dark because the Hurricanes are ranked 10th in the country. Shot in the dark. Where I actually think it might be, Bud, is in Norman because Tennessee is there to play Oklahoma. So I think that's where it might be. Because you have 2 top 20 teams facing off. So shot in the dark in Tampa, USF Miami, actual Tennessee, Oklahoma in Norman.
Okay, let me give you mine. So week 4, I think game day might be at a shot in the dark is going to be an SEC game.
Okay.
Oh, never mind. No, there's no good. There's no good SEC games next week.
Mm-mm.
Mac, I'm gonna go Miami, Ohio, Notre Dame is my shot in the dark because Notre Dame is ranked right now, and
Okay.
unless they somehow lose to Purdue, I think that's the shot in the dark. But where I think they actually might go is to the Big Ten. If I can find the Big Ten, is LSU USC.
Okay.
That's for week 4. I'll start week 5.
Okay.
And my shot in the dark for week 5 is, I want to say Mississippi State, Texas, but no. So week 5, shot in the dark, Rutgers. No, they can't do that because that's a Friday game. Never mind. Maybe East Lansing for Michigan State, Ohio State.
Okay.
But where I think they actually go in week 5 is to the SEC, and they go to Georgia, Alabama.
Yeah, no, I think
Tuscaloosa.
hands down, Bud, that's where they'll be because that's Georgia, Alabama. That's the number 1 team in the country against the number 4 team. So that's by far where they'll be. My shot in the dark, but I'm gonna go. No, you can't do that one. That's a Friday game, so you can't do that one. You know what? This is a shot in the dark. I think they end up in Purdue for Nebraska. Purdue. Nebraska's on the rise. You never know. You never know. But 9 times out of 10, it's Alabama, Georgia. I mean, that's usually where it'll be most likely in week 5.
Okay. And then go week 6. Who's your shot in the dark, and where do you think they're actually going to go?
Let's see here. Shot in the dark will be in Tallahassee, Clemson, Florida State, because if FSU loses, it'll be a shot in the dark there. where I think they might actually be probably in Columbus, Iowa, Ohio State. I mean, yeah, well, yeah, because you can't pick that game because it's a Friday game. Yeah, I'm gonna say in Columbus at the Horseshoe.
Okay. My shot in the dark game for week 6 is Missouri, Texas A&M. Because I think if Missouri is still undefeated, there's a shot in the dark that they go to College Station for a noon game for Missouri and A&M. But I'm going to go a little bit off the board where I think they might go in week 6. They might go to the American. And they might go to Air Force and Navy.
Okay. The Academy game. Okay.
It's a battle for the, what do they call that trophy they give the team that wins the
Commanders in Chiefs trophy.
The Commander in Chiefs trophy.
Yep.
But I think that's going to be it for tonight's show. We will see y'all back here on Thursday with more of the Fourth and Long podcast with Bradley and Alec. We are signing off. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday night.